Mr. Charles, you sent me a really cool clip from Tom Brady the other day. What caught your interest, or what stood out from that clip?
Tom is speaking my language, and I will definitely preface this by saying I'm not like a Tom Brady super fan. I'm not, huge into football, but I will say this. I followed his career with great interest because if you look at the college senior Tom Brady, he should not he should not have been a 6 or 7 time Super Bowl winner. He just on paper he just did not look like that. So my theory and my position had always been what he lacked maybe physically. His 40-yard dash was 5.2 seconds or something. These are all sports statistics, but statistically speaking, he was not supposed to be an incredible quarterback. So what differentiated him? And my theory had always been, yeah, sure, there's internal drive, his football IQ, that stuff absolutely matters. But what really matters is his leadership. And that's why I've always paid close attention to Tom's success and what Tom's vision and Tom's thoughts on things. And now that he's retired and he's a commentator for the NFL, he's his football IQ is definitely showing, but this clip in particular really summed up what he believes was a success to his career.
Let's just go ahead and watch some of it right here, right now, okay?
I think you go into the NFL draft and everyone's like, look at this guy's skill set. He's really fast. He's really big. Look how strong an arm he throws. Oh my God, he was on his knees and he threw the ball 70 yards. But I'm like,
who cares?
Okay. Yeah, what does that mean? Is he mentally, is he smart enough to take an information, process it, and use it on the field? Does he know, has he mastered the playbook? Does he know how to study? Does he know how to learn from his mistakes? And then emotionally, is he competitive every day? Is he really volatile as a leader? Does he know how to deal with adversity? Does he know how to deal with competition? How does he react when things don't go his way? What's going to happen when
I'm going to cut him off right there. It is so weird to listen to a football player speak like this. Usually in fact, I would even go, I'm not a big into football, but I think it's the first time I actually listened to a footballer speak about emotion and leadership, and
Right. And you can very quickly just listen to that segment of that clip and very quickly transition that right into an executive space, right? Because you can, sure, anybody can go in. So what they're talking about is, and this is a little bit of Moneyball as well. I'm mixing in yet another sports analogy, right? And Moneyball with around baseball and what they did over there in California. But this is the deal with sports, is they try to make everything statistics driven. And if you do that in business as well, it's very, very easy to get hung up on, well, he's the first one here and they're the last one to leave and they work harder than everyone else and they push and shove and look at their numbers. And it's like, okay, yeah, statistically, you can say that is a form of success. But to Tom's point, yeah, so anybody can come in early and anybody can stay late and anyone can burn a ton of bridges and burn out their team and piss a bunch of people off and drive a bunch of people away for short-term gain. And when you play a sport at an amateur level, there's a lot of that happens. Some of the really successful college programs are successful because of their longevity. And the only way they do that is they lean into these ideas of emotional intelligence and leadership qualities for every member of the team.
Let's go ahead and keep on watching it just a little more.
Throws 4 interceptions a game. How's he going to respond to that? So if you don't have those, because as you guys know, when you play sports, adversity is coming. Oh, yeah. It may not be your first year. It may not be your second year. It will come at some point. And the best players I've ever been around, they know how to deal with all parts of those emotions. They know how to study. They're going to learn every single year. They're going to be a little bit better. When you become mentally and emotionally a master of yourself, my belief is you do get better as you get older. The people who are only focused on their physical ability, over time, you get worse. If you don't ever master the mental emotional part, to me, you're a declining asset from the day you're drafted.
Yeah.
So you have this great.
I gotta cut him off right there. That is so powerful. I'm gonna take it back to soccer because it reminds me so much of Cristiano Ronaldo. I mean, when he was young, yes, he was a great dribbler. He was so good at scoring goals, whatever it is. But he was also so dumb. Like you would just see him when he was doing press releases and everything. He was just so full of himself, and it was annoying just listening to him. But as he grew older, some of that foolishness just disappeared because I guess he became a little more mature, and in my book, he became an even better soccer player as well.
Yeah, well, so that's a form of compensation, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Okay, when you start out and you're young and you are faster than everyone else, and you are stronger than everyone else, and you do have better endurance than everyone else, that makes up for a lot of sins. You can be dumb. You can be selfish. You can be horrible, but you make up for it because you just outperform people. But that is, as Tom mentioned, a declining asset because it's only a matter of time where somebody enters the game who is faster, who is stronger, who does have better endurance. And all of a sudden, hey, wait a minute. I need to compensate for this. Now, the beauty of that is if you recognize it and you use that time where you are physically dominant to start developing the intellectual side of your game, whether that's in business or in sports, and you really, I mean, specifically in business, you have got to develop your emotional intelligence. It's just, it is a non-negotiable. You do not have great managers who become CEOs of organizations. Absolutely freaking not. The higher you go up in the organization, the more important it is that you understand strategy, which is the intellectual side of the house, and people, which is the emotional side of the house. Because as Tom said, it's coming. Adversity is coming. The crazy things that happen when you have an organization of 20, 200, 2,000 people, adversity is coming. There's going to be crazy stuff that you never could have anticipated. And if you rely solely on brute force, that is a declining asset, and you will drive people away and your organization will suffer.
All right, let's wrap up the clip here.
Year, and everyone's like, oh my God, there's great potential. Except that that's the pinnacle of where you're at. And now you start to decline over time because maybe that organization that Troy was alluding to isn't teaching you the right values, what really matters toward your success. And you're right. I don't think there's a lot of programs. And now it's starting more even in high school and college where there's less development in those areas because in college, there are no programs anymore. There's teams, there's no programs. No. We grew up with programs. I went to Michigan. I was playing pro football when I was in college. We were playing the best teams who had great teams. We were well coached. We ran pro style offenses. I had 5 years of training. Then all of a sudden I got to the pro level. I had 1 year learning the system and I was like, man, I can compete with anybody now. So that I end up getting my opportunity in the second game of the year. And I said, if they ever put me on the field, they're never going to take me off the field because I learned to compete. I knew how to be resilient. I knew how to be competitive. I learned playbooks. I mastered playbooks. I trained hard because physically I was actually way less developed than a lot of other guys. So I had to work my ass off to try to make up that ground. And finally, when I made up that ground, I thought I was really well-rounded and my ability to compete was at a much higher level. So now I got my chance. And then as I got better physically through the course of my career, mentally, emotionally, I was awesome. Well, there I got to be, in my at 25, I was good. At 35, I was great. At 45, I was a master.
At 45, he was a master. I love how he makes the distinction between just training and actually attending a program that teaches you. He specifically mentioned the word values, Charles. In there.
Yeah, I know.
What do you make of that? Imagine the
grin, right? When I heard that. Yeah, I love this also because what he's touching on, and this wasn't his intent, but when you look at new upcoming businesses and organizations, I'm not going to quote the statistic, but there is a statistic out there that most founders, okay, so more than 50%, most founders of companies are replaced because they fail to do this. They fail to do what Tom just described. They're great technicians. They create some kind of a product or a service, but that's it. They fail to develop their leadership. They fail to develop their emotional intelligence. They fail to learn self-regulation. Tom talked about the volatility of leadership. Man, one of the most important traits you can have as a leader is trust. Your team has to trust that you're a consistent leader. So statistically, most founders are replaced not because there's anything wrong with the business or the company, but because they fail to develop in pace with the company. Right? They're perfectly fine managing, 3 or 4 friends that they went to college with, that they started this company with. Yeah. We all get along. Everything's fine. But as the sophistication grows and they fail to develop the way Tom just described, mentally and emotionally, the organization outgrows them. So they become replaced. And in the really horrible instance where they're not, because their business remains private, what happens? They struggle, and they do not understand that it is they themselves and their lack of leadership, their lack of regulation, and their lack of emotional intelligence that's holding that organization back. They just assume that it's, this dang supplier, and if we could just get these people to show up on time, and why don't people do their jobs, and we need a new tactic, and we need some new, sheet, we need some new piece of software. No. Odds are, when I enter into an organization, I'm sorry, I bring a bias with me. My assumption is, let me calibrate and make sure that the leadership is aligned before I start throwing any new tools or any new tactics at them. And 99 times out of 100, there's major realignments and major adjustments that need to be made at the top.
So if we've identified that there's a clear problem, and Tom even mentioned this, right? And you've sort of touched on it as well, which is that we don't, these days we don't necessarily get coached or trained to understand what matters to us, to understand our values. What's a solution for someone that recognizes that, hey, I might be good at my skill, I might be good at doing my job, but if I want to become better, if I want to hit the next level, how do I do some sort of self-introspection work to understand what is important to me and how can I evolve and become a leader, which is something that I think Tom was also commenting on.
Yeah, I always start with where is that individual's friction, right? There's no sense in solving a problem that doesn't have a problem, that doesn't have some kind of consequence to it, right? So to prescribe some kind of blanket solution isn't really fair to anyone. It really depends how it's manifesting and how it's showing up in your life and in your organization. So there is a function of that where you have to just have at least the basic level of self-awareness to say, man, I look back over your decisions over the last 6 months or so and say, are you happy with those decisions? Do you feel like they were made from a good place? Is there an opportunity to maybe be a little less reactive, to be a little more consistent? There's a lot that goes into that, and I'm not really in the position to hand out solutions to people that I don't really know. Truthfully though, you've got to recognize it, the pace of business, especially just around the world right now. We're so focused on information, and we have these incredibly powerful tools that allow us to scale up our reach and scale up our voice so quickly that this little idea that you have all of a sudden can become extremely large. And so in order for us as humans to keep up with that pace, you've got to really make a concerted effort and make it a priority to match the pace of the growth of your organization. Because physically, you can have a global company from your garage. You can literally be shipping around the world from your garage. And so to understand the impact of that, are you the leader who is ready for that responsibility and ready for those decisions? Odds are you might be a great technician, but leadership doesn't just happen. I really want people to stop thinking that leadership is this thing you're either born with or you're not. No, no. Look at Tom Brady. Tom Brady was not born that way. What Tom Brady was born with was an awareness, and he got very, very lucky that he did have enough talent to get into Michigan and play at Michigan. And he's right. He was put into a pipeline, a developmental pipeline that developed his skills, his emotional awareness, his leadership skills. It was part of that program. And that's why he refers to it as a program and not just a team, right?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
there's organizations, a lot of big organizations, they spend time and money doing this with their up and coming leaders. They recognize, okay, at this point in your career, with this much responsibility, perhaps this many direct reports, you really should be aware of this. So we're going to send you to a week-long class with other leaders who are, but that takes really large organizations to be able to afford to do that and to recognize that they need to create a pipeline for leadership. And they do that. They invest the time and the money and the effort into doing that. But if you're a small regional company and you're responsible for a couple hundred people, but you're running at a multi-million-dollar rate, not only do you not have the time, but you certainly don't have the money to invest in developing a pipeline, a leadership pipeline within your business. So you've got to go out and source that for yourself.
Well, I think this is probably going to be the first of many reaction videos that we do. I think that clip made me want to go back and listen to the hour-long conversation that they had with Tom Brady. I mean, guy
Yeah.
just shows a certain level of maturity that is, wow, impressive.
Yeah.
But anyways,
Yeah,
thank you, man.
he worked hard to do that. You know, that he didn't become a Super Bowl winner and then become a leader. That's the other piece of that, right? It's not like he knows these things because he won the Super Bowl. No, 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 no. It's the other way around. He won
100%.
all those Super Bowls consistently because if you go back and you look at his career highlight video, which would be an hour long, it is those really clutch moments where a lot of people who do not have the emotional regulation and do not have the confidence and the stability within themselves, they would crumble under that pressure.
Hmm.
He alludes to it a little bit, and he's not trying to necessarily pat his own back, but he prepared not for, he didn't prepare to win, he prepared to lose. What am I going to do when? Right? What am I going to
Right.
do when I get sacked on
Right.
3rd and 8? How am I going to respond to that? How am I going to respond when I just can't get around this one defender? Am I just going to give up? Am I going to get frustrated? Am I going to get pissed because I'm entitled? Don't you know who I am? You're not supposed to tackle me. I'm supposed to win all the time, right? He prepared for those wins. And if you want to succeed in life, you have to do that. And you have to recognize that there's a holistic approach to leadership. It's not just about brute force or I know this about this technical thing. Good for you. That'll take you so far, but it won't take you all the way.
Loved it. But can't think of a better way to wrap it up. All right, thanks, Charles.